Hi folks, Nathan here with Family Protection Ministries. I'm here to talk with you about a few things today on our podcast. We're looking at a few things related to the California Legislature, and then there's a few things about the family and the ways that we are being impacted by the folks really pushing another agenda here in California and across the nation. So let's get into it. Welcome to the Front Line with FPM, where we talk about California politics, homeschool freedom, parental rights, and the family. I'm your host, Nathan Pierce, and thanks for joining us today. Let's jump right in and see what's going on here on the Front Line. All right, so first I want to mention a couple of things related to California's governor. Governor Newsom recently had a staff change up. It seems to be connected with the issue of Prop 36 and how Newsom was opposing Prop 36. He did not like the idea of basically calling crime again, making crime illegal again in California. But there was some issues within his staff connected with that, and so his chief of staff is now gone and has been replaced with someone else. There's some related news to that published by the Sacramento Bee on December 16th. You can check that out if you're interested. But also, even more immediate is an issue that came up today where Governor Newsom declared that we are in a state of emergency here in California. Familiar sounding much? Well, again, this is related to a public health crisis, and we are familiar with that, certainly in California. Our governor calling state of emergency due to a health crisis. This time it's bird flu, and that is apparently growing as a concern in the Central Valley. Certainly we've seen some of this in the news across the nation, but that's what's going on here in California today. Governor Newsom has declared that we are in a state of emergency due to bird flu. So we'll stay on top of that, see what happens with it, how far that goes. I wanted to mention a couple of other things. There's definitely a news story that's been going on over the last several years related to materials in school libraries. And there's been a couple of bills about this that we've reported on over the last few years, but and they don't specifically relate to homeschoolers because they're focusing on public school libraries. But the bills have to do with banning books or making it so that it's not allowed to ban books in certain in libraries. Schools can't ban books. It has to be the state. It has to be approved if it's going to get banned. And there's a headline this is published by the California Globe, December 18th, 2024. The headline here is Devious New California Law Prohibits Libraries from Banning Pornographic Library Books. And the purpose is not to protect your kids from pornographic library books, but to prevent the pornographic library books from being banned. And this article goes into a lot of the different things that we've seen in the news over the last several years. Books that have been getting thrown out because parents are up in arms. They're concerned about the things that their kids are being exposed to in the public schools, being exposed to in the libraries in the public schools. And so the parents are getting upset about this and saying, hey, we need to stop letting our kids have access to these certain books, and we need to take action on this. They show up at school board meetings. They're getting elected to school boards so that they can have more of a voice in these public schools. And then the state of California has come down. The legislature has said, well, parents don't have the authority, nor do the school boards have authority in their schools where they're on the board to make determinations about what books can be in the school libraries or not. They're not only can teachers not decide, Not only can the parents who send their kids to that school decide, but the school board, the elected officials in charge of those schools, the school boards, are not allowed to make decisions about books. It has to be the state level. This is centralized government at its worst. But I think this is telling in our society that the more the state takes control at a more centralized location, the less the local people have control. And so this is something we're seeing in the public schools. It's something that, again, doesn't apply directly right now to homeschoolers or private schools, but this is an issue that we need to be watching for because it impacts our culture at large, and it impacts our society, and it's a step in a very wrong direction towards taking control away from individual people and from local control of whether it's a school or city or communities that have their own rules and regulations. This taking of control away from local communities and giving it to the state is a dangerous direction, and we should definitely be aware of it and taking a stand against it, because it's not in the best interest of our communities or our families. Ultimately, the society is best run when it's based on the fundamental principle of the family is the core of the organizational structure of society. It should be built on the structure of the family. The family should be the small building blocks that society is built on. And when you undermine the various aspects of society and the structural portions of society that connect one area of society to another, and even the authority of those local communities. And here we're talking about school boards, local school districts not having authority at the state level. We're having somebody make a decision at the state level for 40 million people in the state of California, whereas in a local school district, it's locally elected people that are familiar with the community and know what's best for those families. And when you look at our situation in homeschooling, you can see that families, parents actually have the authority to make those decisions for their own libraries for children in their own homes. And that is appropriate. That is a very appropriate place for that authority to rest, because it's God-given authority. That is the exact place that God put the responsibility for those books and for all teaching for children. And so parents are responsible, and they should have the right to make those determinations for their own kids. The next level up for that would be communities in their local areas. But God did not give the authority to determine what books children should read to either a local school board or a state, a centralized state government. Determinations over how a child should be raised and how a child should learn and what books they should be reading or have access to, that responsibility and that right of responsibility lies appropriately with parents, not with school districts, and certainly not with the state government. So as we see this becoming more and more of a centralized push for our educational structure in our society and for the upbringing of children, we will certainly see that power, that authority, that structure pulled further and further away from the family, from the parents. And that pull is getting harder. It's a strong pull towards centralized government in Sacramento, where we have legislators that want to have more and more control over the decisions of local communities and parents. And so that's something that we've been seeing over the last number of years, and we need to fight back against that. We need to recognize that that's the direction this is going, and we need to take a stand. We have tremendous amount of freedom. I remind you, we have a tremendous amount of freedom in the homeschool community in the state of California, much more than many other states. And so we can be very, very grateful for that. But don't take that right, don't take that responsibility to maintain that freedom lightly. We need to recognize that that freedom has only come and stayed because of our vigilance to protect it and by God's protective hand. And we need to be good stewards of that freedom and work to continue protecting it for the next generations. So I would encourage you to be aware of these things and stand up for the family in California and in our nation. Next, I want to read from an article by, this is an article by, it's published by Foundation for Economic Education, and it's talking about homeschoolers and microschoolers describe the benefits of alternative education. It's a great article. I would encourage you to take a look at it, published Tuesday, December 17th, 2024. And this article just talks a little bit about some interviews that were done with a couple of homeschool students that talk about how homeschooling has benefited them. And I'm just going to read a couple of portions out of here right near the end where it's talking about benefits of homeschooling. We are seeing how unconventional education can make it easier for students to feel empowered to dream big and start pursuing their passions earlier in life. The promising output of these programs is a good sign that those graduating from these programs will be better equipped with the skills and knowledge necessary to do whatever they put their minds to. In other words, the flexible systems of education, those where government is least engaged, those places of instruction, those kids that have the least influence from government have the most flexibility in their education and have the most opportunities in life. Let's look at this last section from this article. Learners are not held back by homeschooling or attending a microschool, virtual school, co-op, or other educational alternatives. They're kind of lumping a bunch of alternative education options together. But they go on to say this. Instead, these learners are encouraged to embrace innovation and advocate for change, and they often have more time to pursue their dreams earlier in life. For me, this is talking about a student. This is from a student's perspective. For me, without being homeschooled, I would not have had the space or time to dream, nor would I have become the person I am today. I think unconventional education did have an impact on my success, mainly because it taught me that you could build anything you put your mind to as long as you had a good plan, a good idea, and a passion for it. The future of education is bright, and unconventional education is helping students excel and achieve like never before. Now, I have two things to say about this. One is that I think this is spot on with things that we in the homeschool community have been saying for many years, that homeschooling allows students a wide range of opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise. They have the ability to have a flexible schedule. They have all kinds of flexibility and opportunity that wouldn't be available to them in a what is considered traditional education. The other thing I wanted to point out is this reference to unconventional education, and just remind us that children learning from their parents isn't necessarily unconventional. It might be considered so in our society today because of the last couple of generations and how education systems have developed in our country. But if you look back through history, parents teaching their children is not unconventional at all. It's how God created the family. And as we are preparing to celebrate Christmas and families are gathering together and encouraging one another and sharing their memories together, remembering the faithfulness of God in their lives, and maybe even considering some new opportunities this is a great time to remember and be grateful for the freedoms that God has given us and the opportunities that He's given us through homeschool freedoms. So let's do that. And from all of us here at Family Protection Ministries, from myself and my family, Merry Christmas to you and God bless you. See you again next time. Thanks for joining us for this episode of The Front Line with FPM. For more information about the topics we discuss here, check out Family Protection Ministries at fpmca.org and subscribe to our channel.